Jake, welcome back.
Hey, Aaron, great to be here as always, man.
Dude, my guy. We're this is becoming a reoccurring theme here. I fucking love it. And so in this conversation we're gonna talk about some very specific things. I brought you on to debunk some of these Jewish myths that I've been seeing over and over and over again, whether it be on X or TikTok, all over these platforms. I think we need some real concrete information that we can just send this out to people to say this is the actual truth. Here's why, and I think that's really important. And I'm not smart enough to debunk all of these myths. So I reckon I brought you on because that's what a good podcast host does. It brings in other people who are smarter. And so before we jump into those myths, just give us a little background about, your extensive knowledge in Judaism and your history there and where you're from and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a little farm town on the border between Connecticut and Massachusetts called Suffield. It is a podunk redneck farm town, and I use those terms as terms of endearment. It was nothing but cows, corn, and tobacco when we were growing up. 42 acres on a farm. My earliest memories are of milking cows, collecting chicken eggs, and feeding the horses. So when I say, like, I grew up on a farm, it's not some term. No, I grew up on a farm, and you can see pictures. I actually posted them today because somebody thought I was a bot. So they wanted an early life check-in. It's like, here's me on the back of a tractor with my dad and my little brother directly in a big pile of horse manure. Like, can you get more farm town than that? No, you can't. So it was weird because in this farm town, we were the only Jewish family. What I mean by that, there were two other Jewish families, but the moms weren't Jewish, so halachically, legally, Jewishly speaking, they weren't Jewish. So we were really the only Jews in our town. And that was a weird thing because we were Jews in a town full of Catholics and Protestants. And I love Christianity. Like, that's where my love of Christianity comes from. It comes from all of my buddies, none of whom are actually Jewish that I grew up with in my town. Now, with all that being said, I went to a Jewish day school, Solomon Schechter Day School of West Hartford. And it was weird because we were really athletic. Like, at one point, we owned every single one of the actual athletic records at Solomon Schechter. I think I had 36 points, and that was the most points scored by anybody in middle school. My sister had the same thing when she was on the girls' basketball team. Like, we're good athletes, but because of that, and because we weren't from West Hartford or Farmington or any of the places that were surrounding this school, we were kind of outcast. So I was always that dude that was in the middle of two different places. And instead of that being a negative, I learned to embrace that the older that I got. And so when I finally got to high school and then college, I ended up getting a Jewish studies degree because the professors in the Jewish studies department at Trinity College, where I went, ironically, right, the Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Jew boy went there to Trinity College and got a Jewish studies degree at Trinity College. I wrote 54 pages on Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden entitled Eve as Catalyst because I am the weirdest feminist anybody has ever met. My mom's a badass, so that's where I kind of got that from. And also, my thesis was more of an FU to my freshman and sophomore year roommate who was a devout Catholic. And of course, they believe in original sin. In Judaism, we do not have that concept. It doesn't work that way. And my entire thesis was, look, if nothing happens in Genesis, if Eve doesn't actually do anything, then nothing happens. And then when you go into the weeds, my whole point was Eve couldn't have been sinning because the thing she was going for was intelligence and wisdom. It's right there, Sophia, in the text itself. And if you as a Jew are supposed to accrue as much wisdom as possible, and that wisdom makes you closer to God, then it couldn't have been a sin. So that's 54 pages distilled down into one or two sentences. I then did sports broadcasting throughout my 20s, learned to love every single state in this country, lived in 14 different states, worked in more than 35 others before making Aliyah after my dad died because he was old, born in 1941, Waterbury, and lived in Israel off and on for 6.5, 7 years before coming back during Zman Corona, the time of Corona, time of COVID, because they had all of the draconian laws. I thought that was bullshit. You can't lock me up. I have way too much energy. So I went to the land of no rules and Florida. Ron DeSantis, as always, thank you for giving me my sanity back. And then after coming here, I was the activism manager for a nonprofit Jewish organization in the greater Boston area, checking in and helping with all of the students when they had to face instances of either anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism in their schools. I helped with rallies. I emceed a more than 500-person rally at MIT, the Standing Up for Students rally back in May 2024. And so when you bring somebody like me on, this is my bag. And my specialty is not just combating anti-Semitism, it's also teaching young Jews, but also young Americans, because it's not exclusively Jewish, the people that I talk to, but teaching the younger generation how to be tougher, how to deal with social media, and honestly, how to verbally baby powder anybody that needs to be verbally baby powdered. So that's why I'm here.
Hello, my friend. Before we jump straight into the episode, I would love to share the sponsors of this podcast. And the sponsors of this podcast are all the businesses that I've created that are really part of the ecosystem that run this whole thing. And at the top of that list is Patreon. Patreon is the home of our exclusive community where we do bonus episodes, live streams, Q&As, and merch discounts, and so much more. Patreon is the #1 way to support this podcast and to support my mental health nonprofit called You Are Loved. Next, we have my clothing brand called Shop for Everybody. Every hat and every t-shirt you see me wear on every single episode of this podcast is from Shop for Everybody. It's the home of For the Dads, For the Moms, all Something for Everybody merch, and it's the home of all You Are Loved merch. So that's shopforeverybody.com. And the last thing is my sports performance brand called Champions Adjust. Again, if you see anything Champions Adjust related, it's all found at champsadjust.com. It also has its own podcast. We also do a sports show through Champions Adjust. And if you're looking for any mindset or mental skills classes, they can all be found at champsadjust.com. And so if you want to stay up to date on everything that we're doing here with all of the businesses that I'm involved in, please go to aaronmashbitz.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thank you. Now, on to the episode, completely uninterrupted and ad-free. Here we go. Yes, you're a fucking legend. I found you on X, so people should go follow you there. But let's jump in. Okay, so the first one I think might be the longest one. I've never in my 33 years of life have I heard so many fucking people talk about the Talmud. It has become the most popular piece of text in the history of mankind, and like 98% of people who reference it have never even opened up a page of it. I've never read it. It's a very complicated piece of literature. There's like 32 volumes or something like that. It's a bunch of debates and ethics and customs and all these types of things, which you're going to get into. But why are people so obsessed with the Talmud now? And again, like I think all these things that come back to anti-Semitism, they're going to cherry pick certain pieces in there that make the whole Jewish religion look terrible, and then they're going to say that's law, that's what all Jews follow. So there's no obviously there's no questions here at all. But just like now, your time to sort of take that myth and comment about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an inception of conspiracy theory when it comes to the Talmud, which is people have this conspiracy theory that Jews are some secret cabal and that we're making deals in the back rooms and that we're all talking to one another so we all get on the same page and then we control the weather. That's one of like the more basic level stupid conspiracy theories. And then you have the Talmud, which is essentially a very difficult multi-volume text where if you aren't entirely steeped in the Tanakh, which is the Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, in English, the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings, if you're not steeped in those, you can't even begin to get into the weeds of the Talmud. And you talked about it, how it was like a group chat, I think was the word that you used. And if you didn't, I'm going to say that you did because that's the perfect way to describe it. I think you said debate. I call it a group chat for the olden times. First and foremost, that nobody understands, there's more than one Talmud. There are 2 Talmuds. There's the Talmud Yerushalayim, which is the Jerusalem Talmud, and then there's the Babylonian Talmud. And the Talmud is, if I could put it down in one sentence, a bunch of rabbis arguing about the minutia of both the Torah, the Tanakh, so 5 books of Moses, the prophets, as well as the writings, as well as the Gemara and the oral tradition. All of these are what the Talmud talks about. It is when you say, okay, you cannot boil a kid in his mother's milk, a kid being a baby goat. What does that mean? How can you take that prescription, which is something that talks about kosher, and then break it down? Okay, does it mean we can't only have meat and cheese together, meat and dairy together? Does it mean you can only not have this specific animal with dairy? Or does it mean that you can only have certain animals? And then you have split hooves and those animals that chew their cud, that masticate. It's all of that. And it goes deep and deep and deep and deep. For our discussion, you hear people say, like, oh, Jesus is boiling in excrement. No, one, that's not even who they're talking about. The Yeshua that they're talking about in the Talmud is not Jesus. Two, and I don't mean this as a slight against Christians, Jews, for the most part, and when I mean the most part, I mean 99.5% of the time, don't give a shit about Jesus. He is a historical figure. To Jews, he's not a prophet. We just don't talk about him because we just don't really care about him too much. You guys took that and ran with it and created a new religion, which at its beginning, not the greatest for Jews, and has had some obvious blips here and there throughout the centuries and throughout the millennia. But as it stands today, Christianity is a wonderful religion, and any Jew who is worth his salt and follows the 7 Noahide laws, and I wish X and TikTok would talk about those more than they talk about the Talmud. But just breaking that down really simple, if you follow the 7 Noahide laws, in other words, as Jews, but everybody else, you then get that promise of the afterlife, whatever it is. So anybody, that's available to them. So Christians, they want to proselytize and they want to get more people to Christianity because the good-hearted Christians are seriously worried about the souls of people like me and you. So when somebody wants to convert a Jew and do so in not a crusading way, but do so in a welcoming way, that's what that is. Their religion teaches them that if you're not Christian, then you won't make it into the afterlife. Your soul won't be saved. That's where that comes from. That is the kindest, most good-hearted thing I have ever heard of. It's just not for us because we also have that. We also have, if you don't do these 7 things, or you do, I think it's 3, and then don't do a couple of the others, if you abide by those, you're solid. And it's stuff like treating animals kindly. Like, it's really basic stuff. And it doesn't say you have to follow our religion. So the Talmud is this massive, massive multi-volume text that just is a bunch of different rabbis arguing over the best ways to do things. And it's not just that they're arguing me and you. And let's go back to like the 500, right, CE. It's not like it would occur 1500 years ago where we can talk right now. They had to write this down. And when I say people don't understand the Talmud, I mean those that are trying to take swipes at the Talmud, they do not know how to read Hebrew, which is what the characters are in. They don't know how to read Arabic, which is what it's also discussed in. They don't know anything besides the translations themselves. So they're taking stuff that is for them, the Old Testament, for me and you, the Bible. They're taking stuff from the Bible that they can't read in the original language of the Bible. And then you go a step down. They're also trying to tell you that now they know the translations based off this really erudite text that even I have trouble understanding. And I spent the first 15 years of my life digging deep on this stuff, and it's fascinating. But they're telling you things that are not true. In all of the things that you see, and this is not me being hyperbolic, this is literally the truth. All of the stuff that you see that they say the Talmud has is not true. There's a guy, Chevrutus, yes, Shrevutus. I'll send it to you so you can put up the name of this guy. But he has the ultimate debunking of all of these things. Like you see the tractates. No. And again, you can't even take the one line because the one line is a part of a very, very long and in-depth conversation. You know that group chat from the GOP students who have never seen a locker room and everybody excused them because it was quote unquote locker room talk? Imagine that times 10,000. That's what the Talmud is. And what they're doing is taking that one line completely out of context and not mentioning the fact there's probably 6 other rabbis saying that's a stupid thought. Here's why it's stupid. And here you go. They're much nicer than that. Although they can really get down and dirty in the Talmud, kind of yelling at each other. But that's what it is. So every single time that you see that, just know it's not true. And if you want to ask somebody what is actually this tractate, this portion of the Talmud talking about, don't go to a groiper or somebody that has Christian nationalist in their Bible. I promise you, they cannot read the actual language that it's in. And guess what? If you need to know the Talmud, go to an actual rabbi. They will gladly, and I mean gladly, tell you what is going on. And when I say it's super in depth, if you take one line of Talmud and you spend 90 minutes in a class, right, with 8 people, you won't get past that one line. And in fact, you probably won't finish the discourse. Seriously. This is how difficult it is, because you have to take every single argument that they're discussing on this one line and see how that entire argument came into being and came a part of our traditions and our religion.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. One of the funniest things I've seen online from on your page was you made a comment on someone who was trying to tell you about Judaism, and you're like, dude, the best part about this is that you're trying to tell me about my religion. You don't even know about my religion or how much I know about my religion. It's like, maybe that's not the exact quote from
Pretty
you,
close,
but
though.
but I was fucking reading it. I was probably sitting in my room or something, and I was just like laughing out loud. Like I was picturing you saying it out loud to this person and like into their face. And it was like, so like,
Well, and the thing that
sorry for laughing so much. Everyone who's listening, that's probably really annoying, but it's like, it's very funny.
the thing that most don't get about this is that who I am online is the exact person that I am in real life. So you can just take the tone that you think I'm saying these things in. That's the tone that I'm saying these things in. And if you don't believe me, you can go and check out my Instagram page where I'm yelling at people at protests. And I am brutal. I'm more brutal in real life than I am online. And I am absolutely brutal online. And I love it. It's so much fun. I love kicking hornet's nest. X is made for somebody like me. I'm an octopus of anti-propaganda.
Yeah, yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, like every time I speak to you, your authenticity shines through, and that's one of the things I really love about you. So, more people should take that away. No matter how weird or whatever you are, man, it's like
Embrace
let it
the weird.
shine, baby. Let it
Yeah.
shine. Yeah. All right, next one. I think, okay, maybe outside the Talmud, this is probably the one that's brought up the second most, and that's the USS Liberty. I mean, every conversation about Israel, anything, just like it gets randomly brought up. Okay, well, what about USS Liberty? What about so talk to us about that.
Okay. I've got 2 ways that I can take this. Do you want to be more of the teaching way, or do you want me more of the online person? Which way? Because I know
Teach.
we're talking about teaching. We'll do teaching
Let's
first. Okay.
teach.
First off, I've got the fat electrician shirt on right now. It's never a war crime the first time because I wanted to get really in the mood for this. By the way, that's the name of the tank from Fury. It wasn't Big Daddy. It was In the Mood. But I wanted to get in the right mood because I knew I was going to talk about the USS Liberty. So the teaching way, let's just take the USS Liberty on its own. In short, the USS Liberty was a absolute tragedy because it was a case of friendly fire, the same type of case of friendly fire that you would get with somebody like Pat Tillman. Friendly fire happens all of the time in war. It's just an unfortunate and massively tragic part of war that there are going to be friendly fire incidents. And when I say friendly fire, it's because during the 6-Day War, which is when the Liberty incident occurred, in 1967, the United States had finally gotten onto the side of Israel because they weren't exactly friendly for the first about decade and a half of their relationship. But what ended up happening with the USS Liberty is that not only was it a friendly fire incident, it was also a case of miscommunication. And that's one of the things that everybody overlooks when it comes to USS Liberty. The USS Liberty was supposed to be 100 nautical miles off of the coast of Egypt. That message from the United States never got to the USS Liberty. So that's miscommunication number 1. Not the biggest miscommunication, but when you're entering an actual war zone, which is what the USS Liberty had done, because it wasn't 100 nautical miles off of the coast. It was actually closer. So Israel sees the USS Liberty. It thinks that it's an Egyptian ship. And the attack lasts for more than an hour. There's scores of Americans dead. I believe it's 43. Might have to check the numbers on that. There's more than 100 casualties. All of that is absolutely tragic, and Israel should apologize for. Here's the thing. Israel apologized for it immediately. When Israel realized that it wasn't, in fact, an Egyptian ship and it was an American ship, they immediately went in to investigate it. Israel did an investigation. The United States and the NSA did an investigation trying to figure out how it was that this ship was in a place where it wasn't supposed to be. And turns out there was a miscommunication, but did Israel say, look, this wasn't our fault, we're not going to do anything? No, they didn't at all. What do you do, Aaron, when you make a mistake? What do you do to somebody that you love and somebody that you hold dear and you make a mistake? What's the first thing that you do?
I try to apologize and hold myself accountable for that mistake and learn from it. I mean, that's what I hope to do with my son when I make a mistake with him or whatever. And I'm like, dude, hopefully I've built up so much my emotional bank account is really large with you that you take this apology sincerely and that you know that I'm coming from a good place. That's what I would try to do.
Good. So that's exactly what happened with Israel and the United States of America. Not only did Israel apologize, as you should, for killing more than two score American soldiers and Navy men, they also actually gave reparations back to those who were affected on the USS Liberty. So you have a case of one, miscommunication that the USS Liberty was not where it was supposed to be. Two, you have a case of miscommunication where Israel thought it was an Egyptian ship because it was in a war zone, because again, number one, it wasn't supposed to be where it was. Then, after Israel attacked, and again, yes, the attack did go on for more than an hour. Once it realized it, it stopped. Then it apologized. And after it apologized, it then gave reparations to all of the people that it affected. At that point, what can you do? Now, here's the main thing. And so we did the teaching part, right? Did we cover all of that? Is that solid enough? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now that the teaching part is over, welcome to how to smack that for internet purposes, which is this. That occurred in 1967, a friendly fire incident, the type of friendly fire incident that occurs all over the place in times of war. So much so that, again, the United States of America killed an NFL star Army Ranger in the person of Pat Tillman and covered it up themselves. So the United States of America did a worse job with Pat Tillman than Israel did with the USS Liberty. All of that being said, that's 1967. If you want to talk about how good Israel has been in terms of its relationship with the United States of America and making up for murdered service members in the Middle East, nobody that ever brings up the USS Liberty talks about Ibrahim Akil. And the reason I bring up Ibrahim Akil is because that guy was one of the men responsible for the Beirut barracks bombing in 1983 that killed 241 United States Marines. So if you're going to go all the way back to 1967, I'm going to ask, why don't you care about Ibrahim Akil from 1983? And the reason I want to ask that question of them is because in September 2024, Israel deleted that motherfucker off the face of the earth. So if you truly care about United States soldiers, Navy men, and Marines, you would be the type of person who would say, thank you so much, Israel, for giving us reparations. I'm still sore because of the USS Liberty. And especially if you have family members that are part of the USS Liberty, I totally get that. Absolutely makes sense to me. But at the same time, if you're trying to be an honest, intellectually honest person, then you also have to say, thank you, Israel, for deleting Ibrahim Akil. I have yet on the entire internet found anybody that is capable of saying both of those things. So that's the USS Liberty and how to counteract it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason that people bring it up is so they feel like they have this sort of gotcha moment, like, look how bad Israel is. We shouldn't support them. We shouldn't give money to them. They bombed their own people. Our relationship with them is shit. Even though I just saw, like, right before I jumped on here, that yes, the United States of America gives Israel $3.8 billion per year, but the investment in that is like a tenfold. I'm going to do a much longer podcast about explaining to that, but if you're a business person, if you're Warren Buffett, he's saying, yes, please, I'll take that investment when you get 10x your return. And so people don't really understand that the allyship and the partnership is actually mutually beneficial to both. And the United States makes like 10x from their little $3.8 billion sort of thing with Israel. But I'm probably not explaining that great, and I'll do a longer episode
No,
about it.
that
But
was perfect. That was I want to interrupt because that was perfect, and that is part and parcel of the conversation with the USS Liberty. Because the only reason that they're bringing up the USS Liberty is in order to say that the United States of America needs to stop giving money to Israel. But as you correctly pointed out, and by the way, it may have been Green Beret nap time because he was the guy on X who put out that study, and all of it makes sense. Rudimentary, we give $3.8 billion to Israel. Israel has to buy at least 75% of its weaponry and armaments out of that 3.8 billion in the United States of America. So it provides jobs, it provides technology, and more than anything else, Israel is the number one reason that the United States of America doesn't have to spend more money in the Middle East. And everybody dismisses that. I get really upset because most people dismiss the fact that Israel is the number one provider of intelligence to the United States of America when it comes to terrorists from the Middle East. The terrorist who was found in Louisiana just last month that nobody on either side of the aisle mentions at all. Can't do his name. His name is ridiculously hard to pronounce, if I'm being honest. But the terrorist who was found, who was an October 7th terrorist in Louisiana just last month, that's we only found him because Israel told the United States of America that guy, that terrorist, is in the United States of America. You need to find him and you need to get him out. And it's these USS Liberty people who won't mention that, even though that guy came in during the Biden administration. So you would think they would use that as something to score points, but they don't care actually about the United States of America. They just want to say USS Liberty and then hate on Israel while never at any point saying, you know what, Israel, thank you so much for all of the stuff that you give back. And I'm somebody, because I'm a patriotic American, I want the relationship between the United States and Israel to be stronger because the United States actually gets a positive investment on its, a positive return on its investment. But Israel is probably going to be the one that will step back from that deal because they've realized they can't be dependent on who is going to be in the Oval Office if they want true security. And Israel right now is ramping up its own bomb making ability and its own military capabilities in Israel itself because they no longer want to rely on Jake Auchincloss and Seth Moulton and all these other people who they thought were their friends and have proven not to be so. Oh, and by the way, if you want the perfect breakdown of the USS Liberty, Wasson, Wasson Watch Company. It's really fun guy to actually follow, but his watches are cool. He has a wonderful breakdown on the Liberty. So if anybody needs it and wants to read it instead of listening to me, you can go find him on X.
Yes, great. I've seen that thread. If I remember, I will post all of these mentions of X threads in the show notes below, but I'm not perfect, so we'll see how it goes. All right, next one is I've seen this word come up a lot, whether it be on TikTok Live or X or whatever like that, is the word goy. Now, I've never used this word in a derogatory way. I've really never actually used the word much. So what's your take on this word and why now is it such a popular word?
Okay, as always, let's do the worst one and then let's bring it back. Goy can be used as a derogatory term if somebody wants to say that that person isn't a Jew. It is shorthand in the worst of times for that and only that. But what is it actually and what is its dominant usage? It means nation. That's it. So Israel is referred to as Goy HaKodesh, so holy nation. Kodesh, Kadash, Kodesh, like holy. That's where that comes from. It's a very, very simple, straightforward word. It just means nation. And as it evolved over time, it turned into essentially non-Jewish nations, non-Jewish people, just shorthand to say that. And if you think that's bad, every single culture has a word for that. Like even Comanche isn't that word. Comanche is actually a derogatory word that just says like the other people. I think Comanche is actually barbarian, if I remember correctly. And then it was other people who referred to the Comanches while using this slur. And then it was kind of thrust upon them in the annals of American history. But really short, Goy is nothing. It's just means nation. That's it. Um, and there's nothing beyond that from what I said. Some people have used it in the past as a derogatory term. I don't, because if I want to use a derogatory term, I'll come up with something much more precise than something that means just everybody else. But yeah, that's all Goy is. Goy means nation in Hebrew.
Mm. Yeah, and then people always ask that, or they, at least they write in the comments, "Am I a good goy?" And I don't really know what that means or what they're sort of referring to. Maybe it's referring to the fact that they think the Jews run the world. So if they're a good goy, then they're going to get like good stuff from the Jews that run the world. Now I'm connecting a lot of different things here, but that's really the only sort of conception I have of that question. Otherwise, I don't really get it, or maybe they're just trying to be mean or rude or throw something in the chat or what. I don't know. But your take.
The main one, now that you said that out loud, is Shabbos Goy. Am I your Shabbos Goy? It's actually other people who are trying to use a term that they don't have any idea what it means because, again, they don't know Hebrew. They can't read Hebrew. They're not steeped in any of the tradition of Jewish people, but they say Shabbos Goy. So those who have to help Jews during Shabbos because we have a bunch of prohibitions. You can't turn on the lights. You can't cook. You can't ride elevators. And if you want to do anything, you have to do this weird kind of like hint, hint at people in order to help you if you're ever on the road during if you're ever on the road as Shomer Shabbos, right? We all know the Big Lebowski. Don't roll on Shabbos. So if you have your Shomer Shabbos Jews and they're on the road for a weekend, they show up probably like noon on Shabbat. They'll check in to their hotel. But if there isn't an elevator that constantly goes up and down, and you have these in almost all of the elevators in Israel because they know that actual um, they have religious Jews who are going to be in the hotels. There'll be an elevator that stops at every floor so that you don't have to. But if you're with Shabbos, or sorry, if you're with a Shomer Shabbos, an observant Jew on Shabbat, and it's not one of those elevators, and you get into the elevator with them, they'll like him. It's like, oh, it'd be great if somebody could come up to the fourth floor and push that button, but you can't ask the person directly. Again, by the way, that brings it back to the Talmud. Where does all of that stuff come from? That comes from the Talmud and a bunch of rabbis arguing over the proper way to still be a good Jew during Shabbat when you have to get stuff done because you're not allowed to
Mm,
work on Shabbat. So how do you get around some of those? Well, you figure out a way to do it. And that way is by hinting sometimes on things like elevators. But the Shabbos Goy, it's like, oh, you want me to do all of this stuff for you? It's like, no, it'd be nice if you could out of the goodness of your own heart. But if you're using Shabbos Goy as a derogatory term, well, that's you using Shabbos Goy as a derogatory term. That's not me using it. And it's weird when people co opt words and then use them as slurs when we're not the ones who use them as slurs. And I think that's really where the Goy issue comes from. It's being used as a slur, but it's not being used as a slur by 95% of Jews.
right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. Next one that always comes up is that the Jews killed Jesus, dude. Why'd you kill Jesus, bro? What the fuck, man? Why'd you kill Jesus? So, let's talk about that one.
Number one, we didn't at all. And this is like one of my biggest bugaboos because it is somebody, if you want to say the Jews killed Jesus, what you have to say is that the Jews were in control of the Romans. Like, let's start there. It was Pontius Pilate and the Romans who crucified Christ. Now, do you know where in anywhere that there has been Jews crucifying anybody? Can you point to one instance of Jews crucifying anybody in the history of the world?
I'm gonna say no.
No, you can't because it doesn't happen because it's not a Jewish way of executing somebody. That's not a thing that we do. It's not a thing that we ever did. It was the Romans who killed Jesus, and it was Pontius Pilate who made the decision. That is all that happened with Jesus. And it's so asinine because the only way that you could come to the conclusion that Jews killed Jesus is if the Jews were in control of the Romans. And if you know anything about history, especially at that point in time, no, Jews were not in control of the Romans at all. Because if we were, we wouldn't have had that whole destruction of the Second Temple thing. That wouldn't have happened. The Arch of Titus, which is in Rome, where guess what? The fucking Romans were? Yeah, that happened because the Jews really couldn't control the Romans. Masada, one of the only times where Jews did a mass suicide pact because they knew that the Romans were going to come up onto that plateau and murder the fuck out of them. That happened because, again, the Jews couldn't control the Romans. But you guys want to say this one time somehow Jews were in control of the decision making for not just the Romans, but specifically Pontius Pilate? Go fuck yourself. That did not happen. And even better, you know who else knows that that was the case? The fucking Pope in 1965 with the Nostra Aetate. He said in 1965, you can't hold the Jews responsible for the murder of Jesus. But fucking nobody wants to talk about that, either because they don't know Latin or because they want to hate on Jews. So the Pope says that the Jews didn't kill Jesus. History says that the Jews didn't kill Jesus, but these dumb fucks online want to talk about the fact that Jews killed Jesus, and it's the number one, it's the OG original conspiracy theory, is that the Jews killed Jesus. And as a Jew, even though I do understand the theology behind this, if Jesus had to die for everybody to absolve every one of their sins, even if the Jews killed Jesus, which they didn't, I'm confused how now this is a problem. So the logic doesn't fucking work within your own conspiracy theory, but it doesn't just work because you're historically illiterate. It doesn't work because you guys don't know your ass from your elbow, and all you want to do is come up with a reason to hate on Jews. And you're going with the original reason, and you're keeping up with a conspiracy theory that has been alive now for more than 2,000 years. Get some new fucking material.
Yes. Yeah, it's another one of the sort of USS Liberty deals, is that anything that can be used to just smear the Jews as being horrible, bad people who then control the world and we shouldn't trust, I'm just going to use it no matter what. And then that becomes the issue with now everyone having this sort of megaphone in their hands, a public platform to say whatever they want, and pretty much anything can go viral any moment. And it just causes a lot of confusion for people, for like good-hearted people who really want to know the truth. It can be very challenging to understand who's right, who's wrong. I mean, we've talked about Dave Smith a bunch, but he says literally everything he says with full conviction. Candace Owens says literally everything she says with full conviction and confidence. I hope every person in the world can speak with that much confidence, but they're fucking so wrong, at least Candace Owens is, about almost everything. But millions of people will listen to her because of that conviction. And it can be hard for someone, because we know that people get popular because of charisma. And like anyone can be popular if they have good charisma. Good charisma, they look good, they sound cool, they sound confident. People will be attached to those ideas. And that's what's happening now, because you can buy a camera, a microphone, put it up, boom. And you can, if you can speak and say words in an elegant, confident, cohesive manner, people are going to follow you in a good or a bad way.
Yeah, and that's what makes this age that we're in so scary. It's because it's available to everybody. And guess what? Not everybody should be putting their opinions out there. Some opinions are better than others, just the way or the same way that some religions are, in fact, better than others. If your religion says that child sacrifice is something that you absolutely have to do, then your religion is not a good religion. There is a difference between good and bad. There is moral and immoral. There is good and evil. It's just what the way of the world is. And the fact that we're in this time where so much evil can get across because everybody does have a microphone and a camera now, that's something that we have to fight against. And I applaud you for bringing somebody like me on in order to talk about all of this evil that is, in fact, just not on X and TikTok, but some of the most popular stuff that is out there, and then it harms the younger generation. And if you're Jewish and you're somebody that sees all of this online, you start to think maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe there's something wrong with my people. Maybe there's something wrong with my nation. And I'm here to tell you, absolutely not. It is the other people who are propagating this bullshit that have something wrong with them. That's what we're here for. It's to defend you guys and then show you how to go on the counteroffensive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, moving on to the next one. One that comes up a lot as well is that every time people see my necklace, which is the Star of David, they say, no, that's the star of Satan or the star of Remphan. And I've gotten pretty good at sort of talking about this one because it comes up the most, but I'll let you jump in on that.
So Star of Remphan, complete, again, we're talking about miscommunication a lot, and that's how that is how people get into very shady areas. But Star of Remphan from Acts in the New Testament, 743, where they're talking about an old symbol, but that's a satanic symbol that has nothing to do with Judaism. We actually didn't pick up the Magen David, the Star of David. We didn't pick that up until hundreds of years later. That wasn't a big thing for us. So by the time that the New Testament came around, we did not have the Magen David. We had the menorah. That is what we had. That was the number one. The menorah being the seven candelabra, seven holder candelabra. I guess I rarely have to say it in English, so just caught me there unawares of how to pronounce that from Hebrew back into English. But yeah, so the candelabra, that is our 7 candle holder. That's the menorah. That was the ancient symbol and icon for the kingdom of David, for all of that. But the Star of Remphan, that's not us at all. So that one is always really weird because they go, oh, you guys have your satanic symbol that comes from this idol. Can you guys listen to yourself? If there's one thing Jews aren't, in the bag for, it's the whole idolatry thing. It is right there. It's the first 2 commandments. We don't get to do that. I am the God, the only God that you have. That's number 1. Number 2, you will not have idols. So for you guys to go Star of Remphan, an idolatrous symbol, it's like, oh, fucking God. Oh, you're so stupid. No, that's not us. And it's clearly not us. And for you to say that is really, really weird because now I'm just going to go, so are you somebody that likes to, worship Satan? Because I'm kind of confused where you got that from because it didn't come from us.
Yeah, that's yeah. What else do people
That
say?
one
Wait, what's
bothers
the
me. That one bothers me because it's so anti-Jewish. Like, no, just swing and a miss, big time. Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec.
Oh yeah, that's what people say. They're like, well, the Star of David isn't even in the Torah, so how's it the modern emblem of Jewish identity? And well, I'm like, that's exactly right. It's a modern emblem of Jewish identity, but it doesn't mean that it's like originated as the Star of Remphan or something. It's does like some sort of god of Saturn, Satan type fucking thing. I don't know. It's a whole convoluted argument, and it sort of I get tired of it. But
Yeah, and what ends up happening is that you have a couple of different camps, but more than likely it comes from Shimon Bar Kokhba and the Kokhba revolt against the Romans, where Kokhba is literally star. So the whole thing was several centuries later, after the New Testament already come by, it's like, oh, Bar Kokhba, we want to show strength. Well, we're going to be the sons of the stars. We're going to be the nation of the stars. And that's where you get the Magen David, at least in short.
hmm. All right, well, there we go. We fucking crushed the Star of Remphan. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. All right, the last one, I don't know, maybe the most contentious or most difficult to discuss potentially, but people bring this up all the time, and they talk about sort of the sucking of the blood during the circumcision. So let's talk about that one.
Yeah, so Mitzape. So this comes from an old practice that absolutely was the case. And I kind of make a an analogy to, how like third world countries, in order to get to file the nails of the children, they'll just bite the children's nails. This is one of those customs that comes from way, 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 way back. So it was an antiseptic custom. Did at one point Moyals, who are the people who do the snips on the wee wees, did the Moyals do this practice? Yes, they did. They absolutely did. Now, was it sucking the blood in the guise of like blood libels, where you do the Christian blood libel, where we take the blood of Christian children and put it into the matzah, which is one level of this blood libel? No, that didn't happen. Was it some pedophilia related issue? Obviously not. No, it was an antiseptic case where they were trying to get the blood out of the just snipped penis. And the thing that I always like to tell people, I even think it was Michael Knowles who made this point, and I'm not the biggest fan currently of Michael Knowles, but Jesus was circumcised. So if you really want to go down on this and say that circumcision, because it's a 2-level attack, is they usually bring this one up and then they'll say, well, circumcision itself is an evil act. It's like, no, it's not. It's very antiseptic. It's not something that anybody has ever had an issue with. So no, it's not that case. But when you want to attack Jews for this one, it's weird. It's an old custom. It's not what you guys say it is, and almost nobody does it any longer. I think like 98% of Moyles don't do this at this point, and it would only be the. I don't like saying extreme Orthodox because to me, extreme Orthodox is just Orthodox. But it's only very select Orthodox sects that do it right now. But again, it's a tradition and it is something that has been done for centuries at this point. And it's for the betterment of the boy. It's not for anything else, no disgusting reason that the gripers online want to say that it's for. And I would say that it's similar to biting the nails off of a child so that they don't scratch themselves, which I'm sure you're starting to figure out yourself with your baby boy there. They will destroy if you don't get a hold of those fingernails. But that's all that one is. There's not much of a counter to it because it is something that was definitely done, but it's not what everybody says it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about that. I just wanted to make sure that we got the right information out there and that people know also that we're honest actors about it because we are admitting it to actually happening and
Sure.
giving you a little bit more context about it, I think is also important for sort of the basis of our whole conversation.
Yeah.
All right, those are the six myths that I wanted to sort of talk about that I've seen the most on the internet. Is there anything else that you want to bring up, Jake, that's important to you or something on top of your mind? You got the floor as always.
Oh man. So we talked about the ROI between America and Israel, the return on investment. That's a big one for me for military purposes. I want to go a little bit deeper into the fact that Israel is the main reason because right now everybody is worried about how much money the United States is spending. If you're not talking about welfare and welfare reform in the United States of America, but you're talking about the money that we send to Israel, either you're completely ignorant about the bottom line budget for the United States of America, or you're doing it to hate on Jews. But more than anything else, why the United States of America is so secure right now and the Middle East is actually not that volatile, especially compared to what it would be if you take out Israel, is because Israel exists. Israel exists as the vanguard for the West. And when you're trying to take down Israel, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take down the West, and it's insane. And I don't believe you when you tell me that you want us to disassociate from Israel while at the same time telling me that you're America first. Those two things right now aren't hand in hand. It's not strange at all. I know why you're doing it. And I want you to be honest, but you guys are cowards. You don't have the honesty to say, look, I'm doing this because I just don't like Jews and I just don't like Israel. Um, I can actually go into the 5 reasons why Israel deserves to have Israel. Do you want me to do that?
Fuck yeah, let's go.
Okay. All right. Ascending or descending order? I think we should do it in ascending order. Okay.
Ascending order.
Ascending order. All right. Modern state of Israel. Why should it exist? First and foremost, legally, Israel has the right to be there right now. Whether that be the Peel Commission, whether that be the Balfour Declaration, whether that be the UN resolution from November 29th, 1947, Israel has the legal right to exist where it does. The United States recognized Israel, then Russia, the Soviet Union, recognized Israel because they agreed to the UN resolution, which was actually a 3-state plan, not 2, a 3-state plan because you had on one side of the Jordan River, you had Transjordan come Jordan, in other words, turned into Jordan. Then on the other side of the Jordan River, you had the Jewish homeland and a secondary Arab homeland. I'm sure mostly people listening to this and getting upset aren't that good at math. So let's do that again. One on the one side of the Jordan River, one on the other side of the Jordan River, and then another one on the other side of the Jordan River. That's a 3-state plan. So I just want to put that out there. Everybody that says 2-state solution, like, no, the Arabs already have a state and it's called Jordan. And the people that run Jordan, that's the Hasmonean, let's make that, excuse me, that's the Hashemite dynasty, which comes from the Arabian Peninsula, which is nowhere near Petra and Jordan and all of that. So you guys already had that. With all of that being said, I don't care. Israel accepted the UN resolution and has a legal right to it. That's why Israel exists. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we've got one. Number two. Now, this is where I'm so riled up for this. Okay. Number two, indigeneity. I'm not the biggest fan of indigeneity because I think we talked about this last time. If you go to Japan, all of the Japanese clans, they fought each other. If you go to China, well, China was about to get overrun by all of the Mongols, and the Mongols overran everybody else. Everywhere you go, somebody has probably been there and defeated another person. So when it comes to indigeneity, okay, it's not my biggest, like, we got to put our flag down here because we were here first. But if we're talking about a contested place, and Israel is absolutely a contested place, we were there first before the Philistini, which are not in any way connected to the current Palestinians in no way, shape, or form. That was a seafaring people from the Mediterranean. So if you're looking at should Jews have a right to have a Jewish state in Israel, absolutely yes, because Jews are indigenous. That's where Jews hail from, Judea. My real biggest pet peeve is all of the people who claim to hate colonialism using the term the West Bank, because the West Bank only came into vogue in 1948 with Jordan. The actual term that has been around for 2,000 years is Judea and Samaria. And let's just kick off to the side Samaria and focus on Judea. Do the Jews come from Judea? What do you think, Aaron?
I would say yes.
Yes, Jews come from Judea. So if you want to do indigeneity, which everybody in Columbia and Harvard wants to talk about, does that count? Absolutely, that counts. So that's number two. Shall we move to number three, or do you have a question on that first?
No, let's go to my number three. You're on a fucking roll, mate.
Okay, decolonization. The Jews actually deserve Israel because it's a decolonization effort. We were there thousands and thousands of years ago, and now, in the day and age where everybody hates on colonialism, the Jews were the ones to decolonize Israel. They decolonized it from the British. Nobody likes the British until it comes to Israel. Then it's okay that it was the British who also, by the way, handed over all of their forts and whatnot to the Arabs. That's fine. It didn't matter. We'll get to that in a second. But when it comes to decolonization efforts, Israel, the modern state of Israel, is the greatest decolonization effort in history, bar none. And everybody hates that because the Jews did what nobody else could, which was decolonize the land. And they did so against the highest and most ridiculous odds. But, you know, Jews are pretty fucking good at shit. And that's why we were able to decolonize it. Anything on
Sick.
that? Or are we going to four?
No, we're going to four, dude. I'm letting you rock.
All right, sweet. Four, and this is because I'm a farm boy. And yes, I said ascending order, so these are actually getting in more importance in my eyes. So number four, squatters' rights. Israel, as we know it today, was a shithole. If you look at Mark Twain, I believe the book is Abundance from 1864. I might have the year wrong, but in Mark Twain's book Abundance, he has that quote about it being a desolate wasteland because it was a desolate wasteland. Then in the multiple aliyot and the multiple, how do I say this in English, migrations from various areas around the world, you had Jews come in and completely reform the land of Israel. So again, for everybody who's on the left and wants this world to be a better, more beautiful place and to give Mother Earth what she is due, right? All of that stupid mumbo jumbo hippie shit, all of that, the Jews did that in Israel. They turned malarial swamplands into the beautiful city of Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, which is barely 100 years old at this point, was nothing. It was literally a diseased malarial swampland, and the Jews completely transformed it. And once the Jews were able to take control of Jerusalem in 1967, after it was illegally occupied, by the way, by Jordan from 1948 to 1967, Israel also transformed Jerusalem as well. So if you're talking about who are the people that deserve a land, do you have the people who treat the land like a piece of shit? Or should you have the people who care so much about the land that they're going to transform it into a thing of beauty? That's the squatters' rights. The fact that the Jews have such a strong connection to the land that they have completely terraformed it essentially into this beautiful area in an area that has no natural resources. Yet, if you go, if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, if you're atheist, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter your skin color, and it doesn't matter your sexual orientation. If you go today to Israel, you will see a beautiful, beautiful land. And that's because the Jews cared about the land so much that they transformed it completely, unlike its previous inhabitants.
Rock on. All right, what's number 5?
Oh, yeah. This one. This one. So, number 5 is right of conquest. This is the Middle East. This is Arab violence versus Western righteousness. If you start wars and you lose the wars, you lose your land. Everyone has known that that is the rule for the fucking entire history of mankind. But all of a sudden, only in Israel does that change. Absolutely not. You started a war in 1947. You put a siege on Jerusalem in December 1947, and then you lost that war with 6 Arab nations. Then you tried again in 1967 in the 6-Day War, and you didn't just lose, you got a counterstrike, as Sabaton, one of my favorite songs to work out to, but a counterstrike. Israel hammered Syria. Israel hammered Lebanon and Jordan and Egypt and won that war and gained more land. Then these Arab nations tried to destroy Israel completely on Yom Kippur in 1973, lost that one too. So when you continue to lose land because you continue to lose war, Arab law, uh, desert law says you don't get that land. And guess what? The Jews won all of those wars. So if you guys want to try to take Israel, go right ahead, but let's at least have a fair fight about it. Because if you want to fight, even if you want to do unfair fights and sneak attacks, when you want to start wars and then lose wars, you don't get to bitch and moan about the fact that you lost war and that you lost land. That's not how this has ever worked anywhere in the history of mankind. And we know that because you and I are sitting in the same country, albeit a completely different time zone from one another, but it's because the United States of America kicked some serious fucking ass. Did we do so in really fucked up ways sometimes with the Indians and Jeffrey Amherst in Amherst, Massachusetts with the smallpox blanket? Yeah, we did. But at the same time, you know what? Rules of war didn't really take into effect until this century. So if you keep stealing, if you keep starting wars and losing wars, you fucking lose your land too. Ask the Japanese or the Chinese or the Russians everywhere around the world. This is how war is conducted, and so too is the aftermath of wars. So, why does Israel actually have a right to be Israel? Because it has the legal right, because it has the indigeneity right, it has the decolonization right, it has the squatter right, and most importantly, it has that right because it won its wars by right of conquest in wars that it did not start. Nobody else has a right to that land. It's only Jews, and Jews who have an egalitarian democratic society that Christians and Muslims and Baha'i and Druze and everybody that lives there lives equally. No apartheid. It's an equal, wonderful bastion of Western philosophy in the Middle East.
God bless you, my friend. I had literally no idea that you were going to talk about that. I had these like 6
I didn't
bullet
either.
points. And then I love it because this is what fires me up about you, dude, is you get like really passionate. I love passionate people. And you get fired up about a subject and it's just like, it's a beautiful thing to see that you live with one of my favorite words in the world is zest. And you fucking live with a bunch of zest, my friend. And I love when it comes through on the screen. And one of these fucking days, we're going to have to do some in person because I'm sick of the virtual bologna sandwich. But, it is what it is. It's the best we got for now with us being 2 brand new dads and our wives need us and our kids need us and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
But,
my baby's crying.
I'm sure mine is. My podcast studio is outside, so I can't hear what's happening inside the house. But I'm sure we'll have another conversation very soon as something else will come up that I need your expertise on. But that was your closing thoughts, I guess, unless you have anything else you want to share before we ride off.
No, just with the Groypers right now as they're trying to get in on the right-wing tent, and I think it's no secret that I'm a right-wing Jew and right-wing American. If you're Team Hitler, you're a Nazi. It's that simple. People are trying to say something else. No, no, Hitler's team, they were the Nazis. So if you're team Hitler, you're a Nazi. If you're a fan of Joseph Stalin, one of the greatest mass murderers of all time, you're a commie and you're dangerous. And that's it. Like, just don't let people get away with bullshit. That's all this is. It's people who don't have the knowledge, expertise, or courage. And I don't blame people, by the way, because online's a scary place. It really is. But it's people who either don't have the knowledge, expertise, or courage to stand up and say, no, fuck you. If you're Team Hitler, you're a Nazi, and there's nothing you can say to convince me otherwise because I'm not stupid. And that's really, you know what? That's a good ending thought. So many of these conspiracy theories and these blood libels are predicated on the person propagating it thinking that you are stupid, and you're not stupid. If you're listening to me or you're listening to Aaron, you're not stupid. And if you are stupid, you can get less stupid by doing more research and by listening to stuff like this. Like, that's how you do. I didn't know this stuff. I'm 38. I didn't know this stuff 23 years ago. I had to learn it. I had to open it up. I had to better myself. And while it's scary when you are, and I don't mean this in a negative sense, it's scary when you're ignorant. It's also empowering because that means you have so much more to learn, that you can actually really work that mental muscle of yours. And if you don't think that you know the answer, go to people who do. I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer. You're like, okay, let's talk about all of these blood libels that go on TikTok. I'm like, wonderful, because now we can teach. If I want to know how to take a really good flat back bump, I'm going to go to you and we're going to do that conversation. So it's not a bad thing if you don't know something. It's actually a fantastic thing because it opens up the ability for you to learn something new. And don't let the fact that people think you're stupid or ignorant about a subject stop you from learning about it and bettering yourself. And I know that's what you are all about, Aaron. And again, it's why I love your Something for Everybody podcast. And I love your, hold on. Yeah, it is right there. I thought I did that perfectly. Yeah, right. So we got our right for the dad, right? Everybody
Hell
dad
yeah.
club, because you want everybody to be better. And that's wonderful. And that's what this is. So when you hear all of these blood libels, know that they think you're stupid. And I don't know about you. I hate when people think I'm stupid, and I immediately want to make myself better and learn. So if you are stupid, the good news is that you can actually get unstupid. And I think that's the best way for me to say that at the end.
Yeah, I think I mean, at least one of my great superpowers is that I'm very curious, and I have no problem. That's why I have a podcast. No problem being the dumbest person in the room. It actually makes for an easy conversation. I just ask questions and sit here and listen. I know quite a few things about a couple of subjects. Like if you ask me about mental health or personal development or things of that nature, maybe wrestling, baseball, physical fitness, I could talk about those for hours, and I do extensively. But on the subjects I am still trying to learn more about, that's why connection with people is the best thing. I would have never found you or any of these other people that I know. I mean, I've become much closer to you than most of the guests I have on my podcast because they are not on like 5 times in the matter of like a year. But it is what it is. But like that's like the essence of a great life is relationships. Like that's it. Like if you have your health, of course, that's number one. But then the next part is relationships. And the only way you have good relationships is if you seek to understand, if you're curious, if you want to know someone about how they think and their upbringing and what drives them. And like, those are the beautiful things. And then that person feels seen and heard. And then they want to ask those same questions about you. And then you're like, fuck, that's awesome. Thanks for asking about this thing that I really like. And like, now you're having these great conversations and you're doing trips together. I don't know where it goes, but whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, but like the great relationships is the essence of being a human. And I think that's what we got to get back to. And so curiosity is a really important piece of that. And, I've learned that from doing almost 450 episodes of this fucking podcast. So, yeah. um, all right, Jake, I think that's good for us today. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will try to drop some of these links to the X threads in
I'll
the show
send them.
notes so we'll make sure that we're talking about the right information and you get the sources. and you can read if you don't want to listen, and you can just sort of check all the information makes sense. And then, Jake will be back on as soon as possible. So appreciate you, man, and talk to you soon.
I'll see you, Aaron. Give my best to the wife and baby boy.
Same to you. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.